It is important to know what we believe in order to be better technology educators.
Philosophical perspectives. Epistemology. From the Greek word episteme, meaning knowledge, and logia, meaning study, is the branch of philosophy concerned with the theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know? Ontology comes from two Greek words, onto meaning being, and logia, which means study. So ontology is the study of what exists. Dualism is an idea that there are two types of an item, such as good and evil, the mind and body, or the individual and the environment. Socrates, Plato, and Descartes all felt that the body and mind were separate and that knowledge was innate. However, John Locke felt that the mind was a blank slate at birth and it was experiences that formed our knowledge. Objectivism was a view that maintains the world is real and consists of objects which exist outside of the mind. Knowledge is a reflection of this world. Ayn Rand popularized objectivism through her writing, and many found it controversial for its moral implications. Realism views reality as separate from the mind, as does objectivism. Knowledge is the correspondence between the world and the mind. Plato's foundations in realism were later altered by Christian leaders like St. Thomas and St. Augustine. Empiricism is an epistemology that states that knowledge comes from experience and through the senses, influenced by John Locke and the theory of the blank slate, with no inborn ideas, only our experiences after we're born. Rationalism is an epistemology in which reasoning of sensory experiences yield knowledge. Early rationalists believed that everything already existed in the mind a priori, and we had only to uncover it. Idealism was a doctrine in which ideas make up reality. The world is not separate from the mind. It is only what we can see in our minds that is real. Relativism is a principle rather than a philosophical perspective, in which reality is based on social and experiential contexts. No absolute truth in the world, individuals build their own truth. Relativism was a principle rather than a philosophical perspective, in which reality is based on social and experiential contexts. No absolute truth is in the world, individuals build their own truths. Pragmatism views truth or knowledge as resulting from groups and their interactions with each other and their environment, which comes together to create reality. Pragmatism is neither an ontology nor an epistemology. Psychological perspectives. The ontological origins of behaviorism are objectivist. Types of learning are respondent learning through classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. Scientists worked in this field were Pavlov, Skinner, Thorndike, and Watson. Pavlov's classical conditioning experiment with dogs showed that they could be trained to salivate in response to a stimuli, such as a bell or a whistle. John Watson's unethical classical conditioning experiment used a child, little Albert, and trained him to fear rats in response to a loud noise. Skinner trained animals to perform specific behaviors in order to receive a reward or a reinforcer in his Skinner box. Cognitivism. Gagne's research focused on the mind and how it worked to process information instead of just responding to stimuli with an observable behavior, as in behaviorism. Learning is increased knowledge stored in memory, not just a change in behavior. Asbel focused on organization of information and meaningful reception learning and deductive reasoning. Cognitive constructivism is associated with Piaget, as is cognitivism, yet focuses on how learners construct their own knowledge. Piaget felt learners constructed their learning through processes of assimilation to their existing schema or with accommodation when a new schema developed. The emphasis is on problem solving and discovery learning. The teacher is more a facilitator rather than an imparter of knowledge. Socioculturalism and cognitive constructivism are differentiated by the requirement that knowledge must be internalized by the learner through interaction called appropriation in socioculturalism. Vygotsky titled the zone of proximal development to show how to best support learners. Instructional scaffolding provided learners with the support they needed to progress. The situativity theory outlines the importance of learning communities rather than individual cognitive processes. One aspect of situativity is anchored instruction, in which learners are given realistic problems to solve. Based on research by Love and Wenger's legitimate peripheral participant, participants work on something they are passionate about and learn more by interacting with others frequently. Philosophical and psychological perspectives. Beliefs about what sort of world it is will determine how man sees it and acts within it, and his way of perceiving and acting will determine his beliefs about its nature. The living man is thus bound within a net of epistemological and ontological premises which, regardless of ultimate truth or falsity, become partially self-validating for him. The relationship between philosophical and psychological perspectives seems to overlap, intertwine, and evolve with each new generation of philosophers, psychologists, and researchers. Each worldview seems to be another piece of an eternal puzzle, finding one small piece that suddenly helps you to see where another piece fits. It is the same among psychological perspectives. The overlap in seemingly contradictory theories help us to see more clearly with the passing of time, additional research, and reflection on what works best under different circumstances. It inspires us to think deeply about why and when we should use certain instructional methods or technologies.